So we're going to take a look at our program CS file. We did not delete that. We kept the one that was generated by the template. And there's quite a bit of code in here, which is why we didn't delete it. And most of the time, the default code will work just fine. But so you understand what you're doing here. You can see that it creates a builder object. And the builder object basically is used for the middleware pipeline. The object adds the services for your controllers and your views. And then we take that builder object with all of those controller and view services, and we store them in another object called app. So app has kind of everything your web app needs at this point. And so then we take app, which basically is your web app, okay? And we check to see if it is in development mode or not, because there's different errors. They display differently in development mode than they do in production. And then we take that app object and we add in the redirection pipeline, which we will learn about later in the course. I don't know that you need to know everything now, but basically its purpose is to redirect to HTTPS. So if they did mistype the web address and put in HTTP, it would redirect to HTTPS. The static file middleware basically tells the application where to look for CSS and JavaScript files. Okay, and those are in the root folder. Routing. We've talked about routing a little bit. This is just indicating that we are going to use the endpoints that are specified. And the default is specified here for map controller route. Okay, so this is indicating that the home controller index method is the default. People may or may not enter an ID, but if they enter home/index/ and then a number, that number is the ID. Then the other thing that you have here is use authorization. We did not add authorization to this app, but this is the middleware that would have brought that in. Okay, and we do examine middleware in a little bit more detail later in the course. Okay, so kind of in a nutshell, that is what is in your file. And as far as running the app goes, I'm going to run a build again, just to make sure everything is good. All right, to run the app, if we just click on this button, then the way mine is set up is it is not going to IIS. So these apps can be run on a Microsoft server or a different type of server, like a Linux. If IIS is selected, okay, and I run it, well, that's kind of emulating a Microsoft server. Okay. If I'm not sure what kind of server I'm going to load this to, then I would probably choose just future value and not IIS. If it says just future value, which is the name of your app, then that is emulating the ability to run on any server, but the server has to have Kestrel installed. If they don't have the proper software installed, they won't be able to run your app. Whereas a Microsoft server can always run your app. So um, that is something to think about when you're looking for a web server. So what they would like us to do is run it as a cross-platform. Okay, and so we can just click right on that. Okay, and I had changed my default browser to Firefox so that you guys could see this warning because it looks scary. Okay, so if I click advanced, it says it's an invalid security certificate, but this is not even online. So I'm going to go ahead and accept the risk, and then it'll run my app. If I change this, and if I click the arrow and I go to web browser, and I get rid of that, and let me select Google. Okay, so now Google is the default, and this is not going to happen. And I don't believe it's going to happen on Edge either. It's just something that happens on Firefox. So just be aware of that. You can check it on whatever browsers you want. Okay, and you can run it to emulate a Microsoft server or a cross-platform. Now, the other thing they wanted to show you was debugging. So we're going to force an error here. So ViewBag is, a protected word. So if you misspell it, that is going to be a problem. So I can even see it before I try to run this, but I'm going to go ahead and save it, and we'll run it. Okay, and there were build errors. Do you want to run the last successful build? Well, no, that doesn't make sense because I got errors. And it says the name ViewBags doesn't exist. If I double click, okay, well, you can see that's a problem. One nice thing I do like in Visual Studio, it does try to help you fix it, but this really is not helpful because it's trying to make you create another object. So that is not the right fix for this. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of my typo and spell it correctly. Okay, and say my changes, and now it should run without any difficulty at all.